Did you know that Niagara Falls, with its awe-inspiring 3,160 tons of water flowing over its edge every second, has been the site of some of the most daring and unbelievable survival stories? A marvel of nature, Niagara Falls straddles the border of the United States and Canada, bestowing both countries with a spectacle of raw, untamed beauty. Its history is as deep and tumultuous as the water that cascades down its precipice. Long before the first daredevil made their leap, the falls were revered by indigenous peoples, and later took the breath away from the first European explorers. But it's not just the sightseers who are drawn to the falls. Thrill-seekers and daredevils too have been lured by the thunderous roar and the thrilling promise of defying death. Despite the inherent dangers, they've challenged the mighty Niagara, staking their lives on the line in the ultimate test of courage. Now, let's dive into the stories of the 12 people who dared to challenge the mighty Niagara and live to tell the tale. Our first survivor is Annie Edson Taylor, a 63-year-old schoolteacher who went over the falls in a barrel in 1901. Annie wasn't your typical daredevil. Her motivation was not the thrill of danger, but rather the allure of fame and fortune. She hoped the daring feat would secure her financial future. On her 63rd birthday, she climbed into a custom-made barrel, cushioned with a mattress for protection. With the help of friends, she was set adrift on the Niagara River, heading straight for the thunderous falls. The intense plummet took less than a minute, but it must have felt like an eternity for Annie. Miraculously, she emerged from her barrel alive and relatively unscathed. Aside from a small gash on her head, Annie's stunt didn't bring her the financial windfall she'd hoped for, but it did earn her a place in history. She became the first person to survive going over Niagara Falls in a barrel. Annie set the stage for others who would dare to brave the falls in the years to come. Hot on Annie's heels, others soon followed suit. Among them were Bobby Leach and Jean Lussier. Bobby Leach, a man of steel nerves, dared to challenge Niagara in 1911. Unlike Annie's wooden barrel, Bobby chose to trust a steel barrel for his plunge. The barrel, as sturdy as Bobby's courage, took the brunt of the mighty Niagara. Despite the barrel's resilience, Bobby wasn't entirely unscathed. He suffered minor injuries, but nothing that could dampen his triumphant spirit. His adventure, though perilous, solidified his name in the annals of daredevil history. 17 years later, in 1928, Jean Lussier entered the scene with a unique contraption of his own. Instead of a barrel, he trusted his life to a large rubber ball. The ball, equipped with rubber tubes for breathing and cushioning, was an innovative approach to tackling the falls. As the ball descended the falls, spectators held their breaths. The weight was nerve-wracking, but the sight of the ball bobbing up downstream, with Jean safely inside, was a sight to behold. Jean's survival wasn't just a testament to his courage, but also his ingenuity. His rubber ball design served as an inspiration for future daredevils. It was a symbol of how the human spirit, paired with innovation, could conquer even the mightiest of natural forces. Both Bobby and Jean, with their daring feats, carved their names into the heart of Niagara. They proved that Annie's feat wasn't a one-off event, but the beginning of a tradition. A tradition that showed the world that the human spirit was as unstoppable as the falls themselves. The daredevil tradition was well and truly established, but the biggest challenges were yet to come. Not all who survived the falls intended to do so. Meet Roger Woodward, a 7-year-old boy who was swept over the falls in 1960. This wasn't a daredevil stunt, but a terrifying accident. Roger, his sister, and a family friend were enjoying a boat ride when the engine failed, propelling them towards the brink of the Horseshoe Falls. While his sister was rescued, Roger was swept over the edge, plunging into the raging waters below. Against all odds, Roger surfaced, alive and relatively unscathed. His survival was nothing short of a miracle, as he was the first person to survive the falls without any protective gear. This life-changing event had a profound impact on Roger. He became a living testament to the power and danger of Niagara Falls, reminding us of its raw, untamed nature. Today, he lives a quiet life, far from the roar of the falls, but his story continues to captivate millions. Roger's unintentional feat brought a new perspective to the dangers and allure of Niagara Falls. The 80s and 90s saw a surge of daredevils, including Nathan Boya, Carol Suchek, Steve Trotter, David Munday, Peter DeBernardi, Jeffrey James Petkovich, and Lori Martin. The decade of the 80s kicked off with Nathan Boya, who, in a daring display, plunged over the falls in a rubber ball he dubbed the Plunge for Peace. Against all odds, Boya survived, proving that innovation and a dash of insanity could defy the mighty Niagara. Soon after, Karl Suchek, a seasoned stuntman, decided to up the ante. He descended the falls in a custom-made barrel, likened to a capsule, surviving the drop, but sustaining injuries that underscored the escalating dangers of these stunts. As the decade progressed, Steve Trotter, a Rhode Island bartender, threw caution to the wind. Using an improvised barrel made from 2 pickle barrels, inner tubes, and fiberglass, Trotter became the youngest person to survive the plunge, marking a new page in the annals of daredevilry. The 90s brought with them more audacious attempts. David Munday, a mechanic from Canada, braved the falls not once but twice, in 1985 and again in 1993, making him the first person to survive the drop multiple times. In a twist of camaraderie, Peter DeBernardi and Jeffrey James Petkovich decided to tackle the falls together in a 2-seater barrel, becoming the first duo to survive the treacherous drop. Their audacity set a new bar for daredevils. Finally, closing the decade was Lori Martin, the first woman since Annie Edson Taylor to conquer the falls. She survived the drop in a barrel of her own design, proving once again that the allure of Niagara was not exclusive to men. The increasing risks and escalating dangers of these stunts made the 80s and 90s a thrilling era of Niagara Falls daredevils. Yet, with each new feat, the question remained: how far were these adventurers willing to go? As we moved into the new millennium, it seemed like the era of Niagara Falls daredevils was coming to an end. In 2003, Kirk Jones became the last known person to survive a plunge over Niagara Falls without any protective device. It was a chilly October day when Jones, a Michigan native, decided to take the plunge. His reasons for this daredevil act were murky at best, a mix of thrill-seeking and a desire to escape personal troubles. Jones took a leap of faith into the bone-chilling waters, without so much as a barrel for protection. Miraculously, he survived, becoming another name in the list of Niagara daredevils. Yet his actions had consequences. He faced legal repercussions and a lifetime ban from Canada. His story, however, took a grim turn. In 2017, Jones attempted the feat again, this time inside an inflatable ball, but tragically did not survive. Kirk's story serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of Niagara Falls, proving that while some have survived, it's a risk that's far from worth taking. From Annie Edson Taylor to Kirk Jones, these 12 individuals have etched their names into the history of Niagara Falls. Let's journey back to the start, where it all began with the audacious Annie Edson Taylor making her descent in her custom-made barrel, becoming the first to conquer the falls in 1901. Then came Bobby Leach, who dared to face the mighty Niagara in a steel barrel, only to break both kneecaps and his jaw. Jean Lussier, on the other hand, survived his 1928 stunt with only minor injuries, thanks to his specially designed rubber ball. The 60s brought a new twist when 7-year-old Roger Woodward, swept over the falls in a life jacket, emerged as the youngest survivor. Fast forward to the 70s, Nathan Boya made headlines, taking the plunge in his plungosphere. The daredevils of the 80s and 90s were no less daring. Karl Suchek, Steve Trotter, and David Munday, each with their unique contraptions, took the leap of faith. Peter DeBernardi and Jeffrey James Petkovich made history as the first duo to go over the falls together, and Lori Martin became the first woman since Annie to survive the drop. And finally, we have Kirk Jones, who in 2003 took the plunge with nothing but the clothes on his back, marking him as the first known person to survive the fall without any protective device. Each of these people has left an indelible mark on the history of the falls, their stories woven into the fabric of Niagara's lore. Their daring feats continue to feed our fascination with the sheer power and awe-inspiring beauty of the falls. Yet it's important to remember that these acts of bravery and recklessness have often resulted in serious consequences, with many others not as fortunate. Niagara Falls continues to captivate and terrify us with its raw power, but remember, it's a spectacle best enjoyed from a safe distance.